Between the Marine Corps and law enforcement, I've got decades of experience with AR-15, M16 platforms, and this type of mil-spec ammo. Today we're going to go ahead and emulate that ammo with a 62 grain full metal jacket Berry's bullet. We're going to load this, we're going to do some CQB type shooting, we're going to do some accuracy testing, and we're going to get you a price breakdown on using the Berry's bullet hand load. Guy Miner here from UltimateReloader.com. Oftentimes I'm on here talking about hunting ammo, hunting rifles, and all that kind of thing. There's a whole nother side to my experience with rifles. We're going to get into loading some economical practice ammo for AR-15s or other 223s. We're going to take a look at how it compares with mil-spec ammo. We're going to take a look at the velocity differences. We're going to take a look at the accuracy differences, and then we're going to actually do a price breakdown too as well on hand loads versus the bulk military ammo that we can buy for these ARs. We'll take a look at all those comparisons and we will come to some conclusions. M16s and AR-15s, and I go back a long way. Actually shot some AR-15s in the 70s, and then I went in the Marine Corps, spent most of my adult life either as a Marine or as a cop. Worked with M16s, M4s, AR-15s that whole time. Got a lot of experience with them, and I'm hoping to share some of that with you. 12 years of SWAT, 17 years as a law enforcement firearms instructor. I'm also a certified patrol rifle instructor. Got that certification from Jeff Hall. He's kind of a legend in this area. You may have heard about him, may not have, but he taught me an awful lot about how to take this AR-15 and use it effectively as a police patrol rifle, which actually rolls really nicely into the role of it for everybody's use, for a home defense weapon, a campsite defense weapon, defending your family, that whole kind of thing. I've got a lot of experience with that, and I want to go ahead and share that with you. In the Marines, in law enforcement, and on SWAT, I had the luxury of burning up an awful lot of government paid for ammo. That's taxpayer paid for ammo. I don't have that anymore. So when I'm doing training, just like when you're doing training, you got to have some economical ammo, whether you choose to go buy bulk 223, 556 ammo, or choose to hand load. That's up to you. Me, I prefer using the hand loads. I save money and I get some really nice results. And just to give you a heads up, this hand load does shoot better than our mil-spec ammo and costs less. You may have seen some of our other Berry's stories. We've tried them in handguns, we've tried them in rifles, and most of the time when people think Berry's bullets, they're thinking plated bullets. These are full metal jacketed bullets. It's a whole different animal. This is a conventional jacketed bullet. And that's a change. It's a fairly new one too. They've had a 55 grainer out there for a while. This is the 62 grain version of that bullet. They have over 60 different kinds of plated bullets, so it's not hard to understand why we mostly think of Berry's as building plated bullets, and they're good bullets. They also produce a lot of other reloading equipment. When we're talking a 62 grain full metal jacket military ammunition, we're talking about what we call the M855. All right, it came out of the old SS-109 designation, and it was actually intended for fighting the Soviets in Europe, which we thought we were going to have to do in the 1980s. So this cartridge handled things better than the original 55 grain load, which was for the M16A1. This bullet and the M16A2 came into service right about the same time. It's a heavier bullet, 62 grains instead of 55 grains. It's a longer bullet, and it's got a steel core penetrator in it, which was intended to get through various types of resistance barriers out there, car doors, body armor, all that stuff. This thing is supposed to be able to do better, and it does. It was introduced in the 80s. When I was in the Marines, we went from the M16A1 to the M16A2, and we saw a bump up in our accuracy with the original 55 grain ammo, and then things got a whole lot better the next year when we started shooting the green tip 62 grain ammo, the M855. Things got a lot better, particularly out there at the 500-yard line. We were shooting an awful lot of possibles out there then. Every shot right in the right in the kill zone on that target. Advantages of the M855 are its downrange performance and the penetration. That's over the original 55 grain full metal jacket. Disadvantage, and that was noted fairly early in Iraq and Afghanistan, was that it's not necessarily the best for anti-personnel use. Not enough damage. So let's start talking about this Berry's bullet. The 62 grains is because there's a 62 grain military load. So this emulates the ballistics of that. It has a similar BC, has the same weight. You can load it to similar muzzle velocities and you get a very similar trajectory. It's a good practice alternative to using the M855 ammunition. One thing to think about whenever you're using full metal jacket ammo is penetration. Any kind of full metal jacket ammo tends to penetrate a lot more than a hollow point or soft point type bullet. So take a look at what it is that you're shooting into and make sure that it can actually stop the bullets. It's a good safety consideration. Something else to think about, a consideration for this Berry's bullet, is that it does not have velocity limits like their plated bullets do. I usually think of lower velocity loads for the Berry's plated bullets, but with this one, you want to pump it up over 3,000 feet per second, go right ahead. Not a problem. It's designed to do that. It also has a cannula ring on the bullet, which is where you should crimp if you're going to crimp when you build your ammunition. And that's an individual choice. You may or may not want to do that. The Berry's 62 grain full metal jacket bullet does have a couple of advantages. One, it's cost effective. This is not an expensive bullet at all. And two, we showed later on, we'll get into that it has increased accuracy over the mil-spec load. So some quick facts about this full metal jacket 62 grain bullet. It is 62 grains, the same as the M855 bullet. Was on the heavier side for 223s and 5.56s. They had 40, 50, 55 grain bullets. The 62s came out, and I know that's been a while. It's been since the 80s, but they were pretty heavy back then. Now, of course, 62 grains is kind of outshone by the 68, 69, 75, 77, 80 grain bullets, even 90 grain bullets, but boy, you've got to have a good fast twist barrel for those. This 224 bullet does perform best with a 1 in 9 twist or faster. And my 1 to 9 twist AR-15 handles them just fine. Typical AR-15 type barrel twists are anywhere from 1 to 7 to a real slow 1 to 14 back in the old days. We've got a pretty decent BC on this bullet according to Berry's. It's a .276 G1 BC, and that's a little higher than an awful lot of them. They start in at around .215 and go up to, on the match bullets, .355 and even some beyond that if you start getting the real heavy match bullets. So let's talk about my load setup. I changed things up this time and went with the wonderful Redding T7 turret press. Made it even better with the addition of this Creedmoor Sports adaptive turret head. This thing is milled out of stainless steel. It is very precision engineered and precision built. I was really impressed with it. Very smooth to use, moves easily, locks in place. Totally cool the way that we can pull these wedges out. We don't even have to use the locking die. We could take care of that with this knob right here. Slides right in, just like that, nice and secure. It is a real pleasure to use. This is not necessary for loading plinking ammo like we did here, practice and plinking type ammo, but it sure was nice to use. It was my first chance to use it and I went with it. I really, really enjoy that. I think I'll probably give it back to Gavin. We'll see. It was real nice to use. By the way, Creedmoor and I go way back. I was buying my match shooting gear from them 20-some years ago when I was doing a lot of high-power competition. That was kind of fun, but haven't been doing that in a while, but I still appreciate the good stuff they offer. One of the neat things they offer is they offer this press with their adaptive head. So you don't have to take off the Redding head if you didn't want it and throw it away, put it in the bin, put it in the back of your closet. You don't have to do that. You're not wasting money on something if you really want this instead. So if you want to learn more about this press and maybe see what else we've done with it, we have a couple of different videos on the T7. We have a video on this adaptive head, and the last time that we'd used it before this was with the 338 Lopwa dies, and they are much bigger. They're the treble dies, and they take 1.25 inches instead of a 7/8 inch hole. And that's when I found out we could just pull these out and replace them very nice and easily, just like that. Kind of opened my eyes a little bit when I saw that happen. I said, well, that's interesting. I want to try that. I used a Lyman powder measure. The powder I used is a ball powder, so it metered through that very, very nicely. And I used the Frankfurt Arsenal Perfect Seat Hand Primer again. I'm really, really fond of that. You can see it's got everything you need for priming in one box right there. It's got all that good stuff in there. You can switch from one cartridge to another, small primers, large primers. It's just fine with all that. So to shoot these two loads, the mil-spec load and our hand load, we used two different rifles. We used my AR-15. It's an old Bushmaster 16-inch barrel. I've had it for quite a few years. Used it a little bit on police work, but mostly, I'll admit, it's been a plinking gun and a coyote hunting gun. That's worked out real well for me. It's got a loopholed 1.5 to 4 Mark AR scope on it. Fairly inexpensive, but it works out really well for the purposes I've been using this rifle for. Modest range out to about 300 yards. I'm pretty competent with it. I like it for that. It's got an illuminated reticle, and it's got a nice power range in there. I found that at CQB distances, close quarter battle, shorter distance training, that I was just as fast on 1.5 power with this as I was with the iron sights. So this has worked out really well. I've got a Magpul stock on there, and I've got a little flip-up backup sight too. So that's a backup iron sight. That's worked out really well for me. Not much to it, just a real simple AR-15. It's been sturdy, dependable, and reasonably accurate. Now, we wanted to see what kind of accuracy both of those different cartridges, the mil-spec cartridge and our hand load, would get, and rather than run them through the AR-15 for that, we did a lot of fun shooting with the AR. We went ahead and used Gavin's 223 trainer rifle, which is a phenomenal rifle. It is the most accurate rifle I've ever used. We've seen that. You can take a look at some of our other videos on that. Phenomenal groups, and we're going to have another video coming out on that. The groups that we got with these two types of ammo are not indicative of what the rifle can do. The trainer can do a lot better than that. We're limited by not having match bullets and that sort of thing. We didn't have match grade ammo for that match grade rifle. Interesting, and we'll get to that. So about our hand loads, what I was trying to do was emulate, get something similar to the mil-spec M855 62 grain ammo. And what I did is I used once fired Winchester cases. I used a standard CCI small rifle primer, 26.5 grains of CFE 223. I mean, it says 223 right on the label. How can it be wrong in a 5.56 and 223, right? So it's actually a very good powder. It's a real nice spherical powder that flows very well through a powder measure, and it works really good in not just this cartridge, but quite a few other cartridges. You can check our videos we've done on that CFE 223 in the past. And of course, I used a 62 grain Berry's full metal jacket bullet for this, again to emulate that mil-spec ammo. Mil-spec, I picked up some Winchester M855 ammo. It's got a mil-spec primer. It's got the military bullet with the 62 grain with a penetrator inside it. I wasn't sure it actually had the penetrator until we shot it on some steel targets. And whereas the conventional full metal jacket, the Berry's bullet, broke up on impact with the AR-500, this stuff actually left some pretty good little divots in our targets. And so you need to know that before you start shooting the M855 at your steel targets. If you don't want them dinged up a little bit, be careful and don't use that stuff with a penetrator in the bullet. So as you can see from the chart, my hand loads need a little bit of improvement on here. I was admittedly a little bit cautious on my powder charge, and that led to my load being almost 200 feet per second slower than the mil-spec load. Also, our ES and SD figures are not quite as good as the mil-spec loads. We did wind up shooting better with it. The reason why I think that my loads were a little bit slower and had wider spread is because of my powder charge. I was about a grain off of published maximum loads for 62-ish grain bullets, 60, 62, 64, all those are popular. What that does, it not only slows my load down some, but it helps keep the load from getting those really tight SD and ES figures that we all want. I've found that the closer to max I push my loads, especially in bottleneck rifle cartridges, the tighter figures I get. Very important whenever you're doing this stuff to adhere to published load data. And one of the nice things about Berry's bullets is they don't publish their own manual, but you can use Hodgdon, you can use Hornady, you can use Lyman, you can use all these different sources and come up with what are some appropriate loads for your rifle, you, and your bullets. That's what you want to do these days, be very careful on all that. Also, the military stuff is not necessarily even loaded to normal hand loading values. It's usually loaded pretty hot, and that's 5.56 stuff there, and yeah, it's loaded warm. No doubt about it. It works great, but it is loaded warm. So I have to admit, AR-15 is an awful lot of fun to shoot. I tend to think of it as a tool. After all, the Marine Corps gave me an M16 to shoot with, and that was my duty, to learn that rifle, to master that rifle, to get good with that rifle, and I did. As a Marine, I had the opportunity for annual qualification with the M16 rifle 11 years in a row, and I'm real happy to say that I managed to qualify as expert for each of those 11 attempts. Then I get to the police department, and it doesn't take long before I've got an AR-15 in my hands, before I had another M16, military surplus M16 in my hands as part of SWAT. And then I was in patrol rifle instructor school, and just did an awful lot of training and work and hauled these things out on various call outs and on high priority calls, high intensity, high risk type stuff. And so it was very much a tool for me. But the whole time that I'm doing that, it's also a lot of fun to shoot. These loads, like other 223 and 5.56 loads, fun to shoot, they're low recoil, they're reasonably accurate, and it's a good all-round AR-15 type load. So that was my general impression on that. We spent some time down in the industrial yard doing what I consider CQB training type stuff. I have to note that I haven't been doing near as much as I used to on that. I was pretty slow. Accurate, but slow. On the other hand, that's kind of the way I am. So there we go. The rifle worked well, the loads worked well, the military stuff worked well, except it chewed up some of our steel targets pretty good. And all that went really well. It went fun, fast, lots of fun. Then we got into some accuracy work. We went ahead and we got out Gavin's 223 trainer rifle, big bolt action, went up to the 100-yard range, set it on that Sinclair bench. Boy, everything was locked in solid, and he and I had a little competition on that later. But the first thing we did was we shot this mil-spec ammo, and I was not really surprised but disappointed. I wound up with a 3.2-inch group from a really incredible match rifle at 100 yards. That was disappointing. That's the green tip military ammo. I hopped on over to my Berry's hand loads and literally cut it in half with a 1.58-inch group. Much, much tighter 5-shot group with the hand load than with the mil-spec ammo. That is, I think, all attributable to the bullet, or mostly attributable to the bullet. It doesn't have that penetrator in it, and the Berry's is apparently making a pretty doggone good full metal jacket bullet for the AR-15. After we were done shooting the mil-spec ammo and my hand loads with the Berry's bullet, we wanted to see what the 223 trainer, a match type rifle, would do with a couple of other match loads that we had available to us. And Gavin and I had a little shoot off. That's in another video, and that'll be a lot of fun to see. Just know that 223 trainer is incredibly accurate and very, very consistent at it. So these groups that it did with the ammo I loaded and with the mil-spec ammo, that's not all indicative of what that rifle can do. At the end of the day, why did we reload this ammo? Why did we reload this bullet? I'll tell you why. Reloading economy. You can take a look at our chart here, and My Barry's hand load was running about 44 cents per shot. Now that's not including the cost of the brass because we already had the brass, buckets of it. So we've got a lot of the brass on hand and we're looking at that as we are reloading that brass. That brass has been paid for and shot, and now from here on out, the rest of its brass life, it's free, 44 cents. Factory ammo, bulk factory ammo, 223, 5.56 is pretty affordable still. It's more expensive than it used to be, of course. All reloading components and ammo seem to have gone up a lot lately. So 69 cents to 75 cents for factory loaded bulk 223 ammo. A big part of our savings came in the bullet. The bullet is right now, I've only been able to find it available from Barry's, not from some of the other retailers, and I expect this price may well come down, not sure, but I wouldn't be surprised. And now it's about 16 cents a bullet. And what I found looking at various other bullets for reloading the 223 and 5.56, anywhere from about 11 cents each on the low end up to about 45 cents each for the real nice match grade bullets. In conclusion, this Barry's full metal jacket bullet duplicates the weight of a very popular mil-spec type of 5.56 ammo. It's recommended for either semi-automatic or bolt action rifles. It'll work fine in either. We used it in both. It's intended for very economical practice loads, something you can take out, get familiar with your AR, your Ruger Mini 14, anything like that that you're using for high volume shooting in the 223 5.56 category. We also were happy to find out that it is considerably more accurate than the mil-spec ammo that we tried. About half the size. That's a significant improvement and a good enough reason for me to stick with that bullet. Plus, it doesn't cost very much, so it shoots well and doesn't cost much. What I want to know is, are you using any of Barry's full metal jacket bullets for your 223 and 5.56 hand loads? If so, what are you using them in? What distances have you shot them out to? And how are you liking them? So drop a comment and we'll have a discussion. That means it's time to wrap this up.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, we're on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, where we've got unrestricted content, and Instagram. Make sure to follow us on all those channels. Ultimate Reloader also has a commercial solutions division serving law enforcement, the military, and the gun industry. We have some unique capabilities, including a comprehensive suite of recoil testing and evaluation capabilities, trigger profiling, and more. If you're interested in custom rifles like what we build here on the channel or gunsmithing services, you're going to want to go to rifles.ultimatereloader.com and get on the wait list. If you want to learn lucrative gunsmithing like what I show here on the channel, including building custom rifles and Cerakote plus a whole bunch more, you're going to want to check out the Colorado School of Trades, schooloftrades.edu. Thanks again for watching.